Hi, and welcome to this writing tip video. Have I got a great one for you? Weeding out prepositions. This is a big one, and it's one of the most transformative that can happen for your writing. Now, just in case you haven't kept abreast of what the parts of speech are since your days in high school learning this in English class, you might remember a preposition is a part of speech that shows a relationship of time, space, or belonging between the noun or pronoun that makes up its phrase and something else in the sentence. Now that's kind of a long and twisty definition, but it's really actually a very simple concept. You'll recognize these quite immediately. So what are some examples? Well, take this scene. Near the top of the mountain with each other. Near, of, and with are all prepositions. Near shows a relationship of space with the top. Of is a relationship of belonging. It's the mountain belongs to the top. And with is also a belonging preposition. It's with each other. Here's another scene. On the horse, it's a relationship of space. It's where the people are. In the forest, again, it's space. Before lunch. Before, of course, being a relationship of time. Now you'll notice that I've isolated all of these prepositional phrases and taken the entire phrase. And that's what we were talking about before in the definition when we were saying that a preposition had a noun or pronoun attached to it that made up a phrase. You'll want to look for these when you're going through your writing because that's how you'll be able to identify them and that's how you're going to be able to revise them out. So here's a list of lots and lots of different types of prepositions. There are many, many, many more. These are perhaps the most common, but look for these when you're going through your writing and try to see if you can weed some of them out. Well, the question might be, so why get rid of them when you're revising? What makes them so problematic? Well, put simply, prepositions can weigh your prose down. And it weighs it down in terms of the ideas because those relationships that prepositions create are complex things to think about in the mind of a reader. But it also can weigh down your prose because it can create a lot of wordiness when you've got lots of prepositions. And this is true particularly when you have several prepositions and prepositional phrases in a single sentence. Again, the relationships that the pronouns show build up very quickly in a reader's mind. So you've got lots of relationships in time, in space, and of belonging. And if you've got lots of those things going on, it can make the sentence very complex very quickly. And again, they're also perhaps the biggest contributor to wordiness in writing. I know in my writing these things, prepositional phrases, are quite heavy. As a great tip, if you're struggling to meet a word count, try cutting prepositions first. It's one of the easiest ways to cut down on words without majorly affecting the sense of a sentence. Now, never fear, preposition overload is relatively easy to fix. I've got 3 tips for you that I think will help when you look at your writing trying to figure out exactly what to do with those prepositions. The first thing is to combine 2 or more prepositions. So if you have a phrase like at the top of the hill, why not combine it into at the hilltop? You've just saved yourself 3 words, and the sentence that would be in would be much shorter now. In addition to combining, you can also just delete unnecessary ones. You'd be surprised how many times people put in prepositions and prepositional phrases that they just don't need. So for instance, breakfast is his first meal of the day. Of the day is a prepositional phrase. Well, why not just take that out? We all know that breakfast is the first meal of the day anyway, so breakfast is his first meal. It makes the same exact meaning without the prepositional phrase in there. So in addition to combining, delete the unnecessary ones. And then as a final tip, and this one is a super secret special one, you can oftentimes get rid of prepositional phrases by using possessives instead. So if you had a phrase, for instance, like the first policy in the world is a prepositional phrase that gives a belonging sense to the first policy and the world. Well, why not, instead of saying in the world, use worlds instead, the world's first policy. You've saved yourself 2 words, and it makes the same exact meaning by saying the world's first policy instead of the first policy in the world. So try that super secret trick out sometime. You'll like it. So hopefully, to help you understand this a little bit better, I'm going to walk you through an example where I'm taking prepositional phrases out of a paragraph of my own writing. Okay, so I have some text that I've pulled up here. This is a paragraph that I've been working on for my own writing, and I haven't really had a chance yet to take a look at it and revise it down. So this will provide a really good example of how to go about doing this. So what I'm going to do is go through and take out some of the prepositional phrases to try to make this a leaner, meaner paragraph. So in advance I have gone through and highlighted all the prepositions that are in here, and that'll give us a better look at how to go through and look at these. Now, of course, in your own writing, these aren't going to be highlighted for you, but remember to look for these really common phrases. Now, one thing that you have to remember is that we're not going to try to take out all of the prepositional phrases. We need to leave some of them in there just to be able to make sense. Prepositions, of course, serve an important function in the English language. So we're not saying that all prepositions are bad, but too often we leave a lot of strings of prepositions and prepositional phrases in our writing. So let's look up here, and we'll start with this first one, for, another major tension for reform. So how can we rephrase this so that we can get rid of the preposition? Well, one thing we can do is take this word reform and make this major reform tension. And related to policy diffusion. I'm going to go ahead and leave that one. Related to is actually looking like a phrasal verb. Let's see. Wide variety of actors with a stake in the outcomes of school feeding. Now this is one of those phrases which is really, really bad. When you have a string of prepositional phrases right in a row, you know you've got some kind of problem going on. Now one of the easy things to do is I'm going to substitute here of actors with a stake. Now actors with a stake, we have a very good phrase that we can replace that with, stakeholders, wide variety of stakeholders. Now stakeholders in the outcomes. Stakeholders always have a stake in the outcome, so that's just redundant. We're going to go ahead and eliminate that one altogether. So is the wide variety of stakeholders of school feeding. Here's one where we could actually make a possessive of school feeding's stakeholders, and then we can just take out of altogether. Let's see. So we can skip on to the next sentence. Even the basic split of purposes outlined in the policy's preamble. So when we have a lot of strings of prepositional phrases right in a row, again, something's going on that we probably don't need. So we could actually say, even the policy preambles, I'm going to change the possessive here, preambles split of purposes. So we're going to say just the preamble's purposes, or maybe say 3 purposes. I can get rid of all those words, military, child welfare, and agriculture. Set up a 3-way conflict of interest. Now here's another example where a preposition is actually needed. Conflict of interest is actually a relatively common phrase, so we don't want to mess with that. That conflict both provides for equilibrium when none of the three feels there are unresolved issues. Here I think we just don't need the preposition at all. That conflict provides, maybe move the both there, provides both equilibrium when none, right now we'll leave in of the three and see how it works. There are unresolved issues and provides, so we can get rid of this provides here. Provides both equilibrium and impetus for change when one of them, oftentimes of and a preposition right after preposition is kind of redundant, so for change when one sees renewed social or media attention. Okay, so that looks good. The country is at war or feeling threatened. We'll leave that for now. The military objectives of the school lunch program. Why don't we make this a possessive too? The school lunch programs, let's see, school lunch programs, military objectives can push reform. Or when poverty suddenly becomes visible on the evening news. Becomes visible on, we could actually change to makes the evening news. Child welfare concerns do the pushing. So we've actually gotten rid here of a lot of the prepositional phrases, and we haven't changed the meaning at all. We've just kind of cleaned things up and tried to help out. So what I'd like to do is show you a comparison side by side. So here's that side-by-side comparison. As you can see, the original had 135 words and 16 prepositional phrases, and then the revised version has 114 words and 6 prepositional phrases. So by cutting out those 10 prepositional phrases, we've been able to save 21 words out of the paragraph. So it's not only fewer words, but if you go through and read through it again, you'll see that some of these sentences are much stronger, much more assertive and cleaner, because they're not sort of weighted down with lots of these relationships in these prepositions. So I hope you'll give this a shot yourself and see if this can improve your own writing.